Kevin.
Hey, guys, it's Amber.
And Kristen.
And if you heard her already over here making noises in her mic, anyhow, let's get into it.
Kiss my ass. Talk about bullying in the workplace.
That's what we're talking about today.
Amber's my bully.
Bullying in the workplace.
Quit being my bully.
Sometimes you have to be bullied because you were literally talking like a witch in the microphone.
It was funny, though. I was a spirit.
There was no spirit.
I know. Sound like a little gremlin.
You did.
Oh, God.
Anyway, seriously, though, on a serious note, there is a lot of bullying in the workplace. Like,
a lot.
you know, I've said it 1,000 times. I used to work for the finance company, and I have so many stories just from that company alone
Mm-hmm.
where it was horrible. It was horrible.
That's why I always stayed at places where it was more mainly men.
That's what our uppers were. Was
okay,
men.
but you worked in a bank. They were really women or men.
No, we had, because one of my one of my VPOs, he used to be a car salesman. So, you know, I mean, he was a sly devil. He knew how to talk around situations and stuff. I can't really say frilly. They were just assholes, really, honestly. Like the whole big bunch of them.
I didn't really have to deal with it, I guess. And really, probably because most of the time, those workplaces, I was on a forklift. The only people I had to deal with was my bosses on the radio.
Well, if they bullied you, you could run over them.
Oh, they would bully me too. My like main boss at the last job I had unloading tankers, he wouldn't bully me because I saved his ass so bad. Like, he wrecked the forklift and I unwrecked the forklift.
Oh, you took the blame for it? Or
no, I fixed it.
Yeah.
So he didn't bully me because I saved his butt all the time.
So I don't know if she's able to watch today, because I do have an old work friend that used to work at the same finance company that I did. When we were talking about this the other day, she's the one that actually gave me the idea to do the podcast of bullying in a workplace, because it was, at one point, it was miserable for us all to deal with this place. But she was telling me a time that, in the finance company, there were customer services, then there was managers, supervisors, VPO, senior VPO.
Mm-hmm.
So the CSRs answer to the managers answer to the supervisors, so on and so forth. You know, that's how it was supposed to be. There was a chain of command.
Yeah.
Well, our particular supervisor was very much, a mean girl, basically, because if you are not in like the clique to do how she wanted it when she wanted it, then she was out for blood for you.
Sounds like school.
Oh, it was horrible. It was worse than school.
But a lot of places are like that, though. Because even though, like, maybe it's because I just didn't deal with it in those places, but it's because I was to myself.
Yeah.
But like, I've had plenty of coworker go to the office over me and complain about something. And I had one boss, he got so tired of it, he would call me in his office, he'd say, "Okay, what'd you do now?" And I'm like, I don't know. What did I do?
My VPO was, because when I first got promoted, my VPO was actually the one who talked to me about doing the promotion.
Yeah.
So my current manager at the time, she's the one that worked with me and, you know, got me ready and everything for the promotion. But he's the one that worked with me, getting me moved into the management position and everything.
Yeah.
But my supervisor, and not even there. I mean, I had an auditor one time that made it absolutely known that she did not like me at all. And this was an internal auditor. that went to all of our offices.
Okay, so it was somebody that went to your all's offices.
Yeah, like they came in to audit our offices, all of our offices, in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So the first time that I ever dealt with her, because I had three different auditors at one time. One was the main auditor that everybody was scared of because, I mean, he was well known for closing an office down if he didn't see that it was running to his standards. He would just shut you down and then you'd be in trouble, basically. But the first time that he audited me, I was scared to death because I knew this. I knew this about him. And he was so nice, and I passed with an excellent. So I was super excited.
Yeah.
So then the female auditor comes in the next go around that I'm audited, and I'm bragging on myself. I'm like, hey, I just got an excellent, or my last audit, I got an excellent off of this auditor, and everybody knows how he is. And she was like, oh, he's a pushover. You'll never get an excellent under me. And I never did. Never, not
But
one
that just
time.
shows she's not there for the right reasons, because you should be able to eventually meet that goal. Because if you can't, what's the point?
Not only that, so okay, that was one of the first times that she audited me. So then another time, she had already hit several offices around my area. Um, there was probably like three or four that had already gotten 100 on their scores. And then one office had gotten like, it was a passing, but it was a low passing.
Mm-hmm.
So when she got into me, I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. Like, everybody else has got 100. I'm ready for my 100. And she was like, oh, no, no, no. This office did not get 100. I can't let them be the only one that didn't. And I'll be damned if I did not get 100 on that one either.
Yeah, no thanks. I think I was more of not necessarily like the class clown, but I always liked to goof off. Like I always excelled at my job, so I always had time to goof off. Always, and I would go do other people's jobs from boredom.
Yeah.
And I remember coming in one day from lunch because I was coming in late, and it was my fault I was coming in late, but I lost track of time. I was outside. We weren't allowed to have our phones. Like he didn't call me on my walkie and say, "Hey, lunchtime."
Yeah.
So I'm just out there, bebopping along my own little beat, and I go to come in and I hear water. Well, if you've ever worked in a plant, that's not a good sign. It wasn't water; it was paint.
Oh.
Falling from the sky because we
Oh.
made paint. It was Porter paint, and it was raining yellow school bus yellow paint. And I got on my walkie, and like you could see the office, like from where I called for them. And I said, it's raining paint. And they come running, like you see like 10 bosses come running. And I'm just standing there at the corner, and I went,
like, you don't know.
well, I knew what they done, but I wasn't going to get involved. I wasn't touching crap.
Yeah.
You wasn't going to blame that crap on me. And I thought I was in the clear. Oh, no, apparently if you see it, you clean it. I was like, this is literally a half of a tank, like gallons of paint. And all it has is like a little curb that would stop it from going to the rest of the plant. So this whole thing is plumb full. So I had to go under these tanks and clean this paint up. It took me that day and then some. I was so mad. I was like, I bet you next time I let the whole tank go out on the floor.
See, that's
we'll
why
all be stuck here.
That's why yesterday, when we were talking about following your dreams and stuff, because when I first started with the finance company, I loved it. I loved it there. Now, every day, no, but most of the time,
Yeah.
I loved it. Even when I got promoted, it was harder when I got promoted because I had different situations, that I had to handle then, which was fine, whatever. I loved having my own office and doing it that way. But the older or the more, I don't want to even say advanced, there was a lot of changes that started happening later on in the years, and to me, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And our system worked great, but of course,
I mess with it.
Right. But they did, and clearly I'm not computer savvy. I mean, you're the one that handles all the computer stuff around here. I am not computer savvy. So one of the things, and we were on an Otis system. I don't know if you know what that is, but it is not nothing like today's computers and stuff.
Yeah.
So when we started evolving, I guess you could say, and changing things up, this is what broke the straw for me when I'd finally had enough is they had changed our application system. Again, I worked for a finance company, so we did small loans. I was always the one that had to look at and approve applications. Well, prior to them changing the system, everything was handwritten on an application.
Mm-hmm.
When they changed the system, everything was put into the computer, which is fine. It was supposed to be easier for us. And eventually, once you learned how to do it that way, it did become easier, but it was such a process to get it there.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I had asked, and I had asked somebody in our corporate office a certain way of how to do these applications because I knew when the audit came through, that was one of the things that they were going to be looking at. From our corporate office, I got specific instructions on how to do this. So I was like, okay, I'm good. I kept the email even from the lady that sent it to me and everything. And I was like, okay, I'm good. Failed my audit because I was doing it wrong, apparently. So I pulled up the email and I was like, I asked this specific question. And here is what I was told. And I got told that I listened to a glorified secretary in our corporate office that I should not have listened to.
Then, well, how are you supposed to know that? You gave them the authority to do that and to say it. Which, like, that is one of the reasons why I don't think I could ever have an office job. But, like I said, I always strive to be the best. It don't matter what I'm doing. Like, I don't, and I won't be like the coworker that's like, I'm better than you. I'm just the coworker that's like, I might be better, but I'm going to help you do your job too.
Well, I mean, I was always raised. My parents always said, give 110% and no matter what you do, whatever it is. And so I had honestly thought I had all of everything covered. Now, we did have changes in our upper management. So I did not have the complete backing that I had before. But I even took this email to like all of them and I was like, listen, I asked this specific question. Here is the answer that I got. I have proof of that. Nobody stood up. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Like this is where I have to stop.
Well, I know one of the first jobs I worked at, I unloaded trucks for Gordon Food Service. Mm-hmm. And I would get thrown into the cooler, the freezer, the dry, wherever they needed me that day. And I became a team lead on the floor. Well, little old me, I was the only woman on the dock. And it would be so funny having these big old guys come up to me and be like, hey, can you go get this machine because we have a truckload that's not on pallets. But one day I come around.
So did they take advantage of you then?
No, because the more money they made, the more money I made. We made money off the truck.
Yeah.
So if I unloaded for them, I made the money. And but I'll be damned if one day we didn't have to work overtime on the weekend and I come flying out of a truck and I knew better as soon as I hit the ramp, I knew. And all of a sudden you just hear a crash. And the whole pallet had hit the top of the door and flipped.
Oh.
And it was lettuce. I was like, who wants, I said, apparently I'm tossing the salad today, boys. Like, can somebody help me pick up this pallet? Like, and I was so mad. And they all looked at me and laughed and started, like, went off on something else. And I was like,
left it for you.
I will make sure that I don't ever pick up another box for you all. Because when I would get bored, if I like had too much on the dock, GFS had this like real strict policy you couldn't clutter the dock. And if I had too much on the dock, I would get off my forklift and help the guys throw. I would never ask for more of a percentage because I only got 20% off of every truck.
Yeah.
They either got 80 or 40. It depended on how they split it. And I never asked for more of a truck. I said, okay. Watch me not get off this forklift anymore and help you throw bags of like 50-pound bags of flour.
See, I guess for me, I can't understand that concept. Like I said, there is
that job,
so many.
That
so
workplace
much.
wasn't like other places because
but when they done that to everywhere.
Me, but when they done that to me, it was like a picking on me thing. Like picking on your little sister.
Yeah, but I still feel like that's probably everywhere.
Like because they would still help me and stuff. That probably was the most low drama bullshit job I have ever had. And it was because we all just didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
We were there to work from 6 to 2 and we were leaving at 2 o'clock.
Well, see, now with us, with our the finance company, we had certain numbers that we had to hit. So if we did not hit those numbers, what is it?
Hold on. Why won't it show? So,
are we froze?
No, Chris Day. Yes, we are.
Did you freeze us?
That's more of the internet.
Hang on, guys.
If you can hear us, hang on.
We're here. We're just.
It's still moving
on here. It is. So it's just on our end.
Oh yeah, we're still moving. Okay, so Chris Day, I used to work with him, and you were one of the ones that picked on me. And he said, "The hell with Eclipse, lol." And it's true because like we went from it was Capstone first. Chris, was you there when it was Capstone? Because it went from Capstone to Eclipse. So when Capstone was there, we made a lot more money on our trucks.
Yeah.
Well, when Eclipse come in, they like took half of our trucks, like the money off of them. They lowered the price of most of our trucks. So none of us wanted to work as hard. So they had trucks piling up because we were all like, if we're not going to make any money, what's the point, you know?
So was that something that you all had to deal with frequently, like them changing companies?
No,
like that,
I worked there for 5 years and we only changed companies once. And it actually went from Eclipse to Capstone to Eclipse. So, but like with Capstone, I liked our like top manager. I didn't like the floor manager at all. He can get screwed, but
here
we are unfroze. So
on our end anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't froze for y'all, but it was for us. Danny had to do his magical touching. But when they took over, when the other company took over, they went through our pricing list. And we all noticed like the huge drop in our trucks.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, everybody like started like pushing it out as hard as we could just to like make as much money as we were making because we all made really good money. And we realized we couldn't.
See, that's what they did with us. When I first took over the management position and with my office, we were managers had like we had a base salary, but then we had a bonus program where we could make just as much in our bonuses than pretty much as our base salary, which was amazing. And we come out pretty good as long as our numbers hit like that. Later on they ended up changing it and we couldn't hardly make anything with our bonuses anymore.
Well, and Gordon's their intake program, their intake could only handle so many pallets. So I would even help their loaders. I would put pallets onto the railing. Well, somebody kept hitting their conveyor belt. So they stopped letting us do it. It wasn't me. I don't even know who it was to this day. I still don't know who was ramming into their conveyor because it would break it.
Mm-hmm.
But they would. They told us eventually that we weren't allowed to load them anymore. Well, that slowed us down too.
So that affected your all's pay as well.
And we were stacking pallets every which way, every corner you could stack them. I ran over a guy's foot because the only time I've ever hit anybody on a forklift. And I'm the one that got drug screened, not him, which is fine.
You ran over his foot.
No. Okay, so look, when you went in and out of the trucks, you had to sound your horn. I was coming out of a truck. He walked between two pallets out in front of the forklift. I couldn't see him. So I was on a stand-up forklift. He walked out from behind me. So I ran his foot over. Thank God he had composite steel-toe boots and it didn't crush his foot.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting here, I'm like, don't you think you ought to like see if Doofus here is okay if he can't see a big old forklift coming his way? Like, because I couldn't see him. Yeah, I couldn't see him.
So here is the girl that I was talking about earlier. She reminded me of this story. Like I said, we had numbers that we had to hit. We had to hit a certain, what they called our standards, and they all had to be hit before the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, we would have to stay late if they were not hit. So in our district, because each in the state of Kentucky, each office was in a different district, several offices in one district. We had probably 6 or 7 offices, maybe a little bit more in one district. But anyway, one of the girls in our district, she actually had cancer, like ovarian cancer. She had beat it once. It did eventually come back, but the whole time when from the very first time that she found out that she had it, again, our supervisor was very much a cliquey type person. And it wasn't so much of the work that you did or the output that you gave, as much as I mean, I'm just gonna say it like how I felt it was. It's like a friendship with her.
Yeah.
If you were close to her, then she was more lenient with you. But in this particular case, her and this other manager I mean, they were fairly close. They went to concerts together all the time and, did things outside of the office, which our supervisor would have that manager go and stand in line to get concert tickets for them to go to concerts, but then would make her stay over so that way she could hit her numbers instead of keeping her in the office like she should have been. I mean, there was just a lot of stuff that went on that should not have gone on.
Danny said, men or women, who is the worst in the worst, blah, 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 who are the worst workplace bullies, or is it a situation based? I think it is women.
Absolutely, 100%.
But women are more catty. Men are more, I had this guy, okay, so I work with all men, so I was a pervert, right? I just did, you get in where you fit in, right?
Right.
So this guy, they had walk areas where they could walk at the last job I was at. And he, I was in the walk area and he just, kept honking the horn on the forklift because I was walking. And I said, horn blows is the driver. And he went to the office over me.
You got in trouble for it.
I got pulled in the office and she said, would you like to tell me what you said to him? And I said, yep. And I told her and she goes, we can't be saying that. And I was like, I understand that, but we have earplugs in. I'm in a walk area. If I look at you and acknowledge you, do not sit there and be the biggest asshole and just keep hitting the horn, keep hitting the horn, keep it. And I mean, it was the whole time I walked.
Now, see, some of the ones like our senior VPL, I feel like he had little man syndrome or something. Because
I worked with guys like that.
He was very passive aggressive sometimes, and he could be very belittling sometimes. In the same sentence, he could tell us that we did an awesome job and we sucked all at the same time, like in one paragraph that we would get an email. It was, oh, you're doing great.
Here, however,
you did great, but do better. It was always, always, always that. But like one of the auditors that I had, he was also a male, and he was so much fun, and he made it so lighthearted. When he came in, we had these little the stress balls that you can sit and squeeze or whatever. So the first time that we had him, he was sitting in the desk behind me, and I took him one of these stress balls, and I was like, okay, so we're just gonna make this as fun as we can. Once you start finding something, just throw a ball, and we'll know that we're in trouble over something. So he's like, okay, I can do that. Well, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes go by, and all these balls start coming over our heads, flying up through the office. And I was like, oh, great. We failed an audit. This is it.
Who broke what?
Yeah. And he was like, oh no, it was just fun throwing balls. So, I mean, it was situations like that made it so much more fun.
It lightens up the workplace because, I had told you, I loved bartending. It's one of the reasons I went and got certified so that I could bartend at the M Center and things like that. And the only thing I didn't like, I always got stuck in the high class bars at the Woodford bar and things like that. So all we basically sold was bourbon.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, we made good money, but there was this woman, I hated getting put in the bar with her because your tip jar stayed in front of you because you literally had your little area. So they would have wells that would have the same thing in every one, but there's 6 people behind the bar and you stayed in your area. Well, she would run out of something and just grab my stuff just constantly. And I would have to replace it. She would never replace her own crap. And finally I said something to her, and because she was older than me, I should have went and got her stuff. And I was like, look, lady, I make the same amount of money as you. And she said, no, I see you count your tips before you leave. And I said, you know why? Because I don't have a sourpuss attitude like you.
See, and I do not agree with that. But I had the same issue when I first took over this office. I was in my late 20s. Well, the ladies in the office that were here prior were a lot older than me. They didn't want me here, much less as their manager, because I was young. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, according to them, So it made it was a very hard situation for us to adjust to each other. We finally did, and we became great friends.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward when I left, and this is another situation of because the VPO, or the supervisor, everybody who had left her district, whether it be to be put into another district, another office, or left completely, a going away party was done for you. I mean, and she went all out for her parties for these people. For us, I mean, we did Christmas parties, we did every kind of holiday party. She always went all out. However, when I had given like a month's notice, it wasn't like I had just up and quit. But when I had decided, I was done and I gave my notice and everything, she had worked it out to where there was several of the other managers that wanted to come in and see me, but only one of them, who was a lot more local or closer to my office, could come and see me because she had them just put them in different areas, or something else was going on. Either way it goes, they couldn't come and tell me bye.
Yeah.
Which that kind of hurt my feelings. But then again, I had a customer service, because they always like to promote within instead of bringing somebody out to put them in a management position.
Do you ever find that to not be true though?
With this company, they did.
They
really
a
like
lot of companies I work at. It's not like that, but yeah.
This company, they really wanted to promote within, instead of bringing in an outside source for a management position. Now, I mean, the CSRs, customer service or whatever, they brought from outside. But I had a customer service who was actually interested in stepping into the management position in my office. So she knew our customers. She knew the procedures already. She knew everything. Like, she was completely ready for this position.
Yeah.
She was not favorite. So instead of even offering it to her, it was offered to another manager who was working in another office to take on a dual office management position. So this woman was going to run two offices. Her office that she was running was not a good office at all. My office was a fairly good office. The office that she had was not producing the numbers like it should have been.
Yeah.
So instead of keeping it within the office like they should have, it was offered to her to run both offices. And I was like, well, why does this make sense? Like, you have somebody who knows our customers. Because I will tell you one thing about this area that I have learned, and even with this bar, with Long Branch, once their customers get used to something, they don't like change. They don't like change. Mm-mm. They do not like change at all. And that's how it was in the finance company. I mean, once they got used to us, then they didn't want a new face in there. They didn't want anybody else, handling their loans or their taxes or anything like that. They were used to us. But because this happened, that girl also quit too. So my entire office ended up quitting the same time that I did, because of how they were treated.
Well, and I mean, to me, that's important, because I became a trainer at a lot of places I went. Because I've had several jobs just because I get bored, or if a better opportunity arises, I'll take it. But I was at Orbis up here, and you work with big machinery, and it's presses. Like, somebody messes up, somebody's getting hurt bad.
So here's a question, because all of the ones that you've talked about, with the exception of being in the bartending industry, it is factory. So have you ever done like an office job anywhere? So, because I just wonder if it is like worse bullying situation, I guess, or setting
probably in the office. Yeah. Because like in factories or things like that, you don't have to stay around the same people. But like at Orbis, there was 9 presses, and we would rotate every 2 hours, because some of the presses were extremely hard. And after that 2 hours, your ass was beat. Like, I mean, women did not last there.
Yeah.
That was another job that I was one of the only women. There was another woman that come in, and her dad was one of the higher ups in maintenance, and she was really young.
Yeah, see, I hear all kinds of. I've got other friends that work in, the factory setting. In Harlan, there was no factories. We didn't have factories. So when I moved here, that was like it was the biggest
Change.
job industry around was factories, and we did a lot of. I did a lot of loans for people in the factories, but they also went through like temp agencies too. So that I feel like that changed a lot, and their
Yeah.
jobs changed a lot. But I mean, I've heard so many horror stories, even coming out of factories.
Yeah. Well, with Orbis, when I became a trainer, the only thing that was good there, I left there actually to go to a bourbon distillery, and I regretted that every day. But when I was working there and I called to quit, the first shift supervisor is actually who I spoke to, and he's like, "What can we do to get you to stay? Will you come to first shift? I'll put you on first shift." I'm like, "No, dude, I don't like working 12-hour shifts, 3 days one week for the next, and then every other weekend.
Yeah.
Like I have no life." And because I was always wanting to sleep, I was working 7 to 7, so all night long, and then I just could never sleep. So, because I'm a night owl anyway, but it was just too much.
And do you really need sleep? Because you don't sleep now.
I don't sleep. That's the sad part about it. But like the only thing I hated, I mean, my supervisor was awesome, but we were rotating because our supervisor ended up getting, I believe it was lung cancer. He got super sick really, really quick. He ended up passing away. But there was a girl that came in that I was supposed to be training, and they put me on an easy machine, easy press. Like I could do it in my sleep. And I'm sitting there trying to train her, and this girl gets down on her hands and knees, crawls, and we have cages that we're not allowed to go in, and was like sticking her arms in there. I'm like, Methany, come back.
Yeah.
Like, come back. And so I went to the office, like I hit the emergency stop button, and I went and got the supervisor that was on shift, and I was like, hey, come get Methany. I'm not training her no more. I'm not getting hurt, and I'm not going to be responsible when she does, because she was like high on something.
See, and that drives me insane too because I feel like I do have a good work ethic. And again, I put everything that I have into whatever job that it is that I'm doing. And I've also installed that into my kids, I feel like. So my son currently works in a restaurant right now. And it amazes me at the ones that
he was wanting overtime.
Just don't care.
The first week he was there.
Oh, he still asked
I was
for
like,
it. But they just don't care. Like they call in, or like he's come home several times and he was like, I had to do my job and their job, and I'm wore out. And I feel like as a mother, I want to say, don't do that. Tell them no, do their own damn job.
Yeah.
But as somebody also that always went above and beyond, because that's just it, I feel like that's what you're supposed to do the one with your work.
Everybody will take advantage of you.
Yeah.
And I found that out the hard way, because even I always felt bad because at Orbis, if I got stuck on at one of the presses where there was there could be 2 to 4 people on one press, depending on the difficulty of it. I always felt so bad if I got teamed up with like one of the bigger dudes, because some of our crates, they weighed over 900 pounds. So yeah, they're on like a thing, and we have to swing them and bring them out and stuff. But I can't match his strength.
And there's so many that, I mean, and he could have not have been this way, but I'm sure there's so many out there that would sabotage just to get you away from them.
Most of them wouldn't me, because if they had to pick up my slack somewhere, I would pick theirs up somewhere else.
But why? But the whole thing is, I don't understand that concept.
For lack of trying.
Like it is.
I was too little.
It's like you go back into high school once you're into adulthood.
This is the same job that I got put in the back corner for 12 hours. I kid you not. I don't know how I stayed awake.
Put in the corner.
Oh, it was hilarious. Me and this other guy, because somebody labeled some of our crates wrong. So we had to have the forklift driver bring the crates back, and we had to go through every single one of them. And so we had to wait for the forklift driver. So in between waiting, it would be like 30 minutes. We sat there. I swear, I was so sleepy. We opened up one of the back like bay doors, and a salamander come in. And I'm sitting back there playing with the salamander when our big boss walks back there. And he goes, Kristen, what you doing? And I had my back to him. and I had like this bright orange vest on. You couldn't miss me because I was trying to hide between crates, but you see me. And I turned around and looked at him, and he sees this big old salamander hanging from my vest, and I was like, I'm bored. And he looked at me and goes, well, pick up a broom. What the hell is that? And I said, I've already swept around here. I don't know what else I could sweep.
See, I mean, we had within our office itself, we always tried to lighten the mood, do stuff fun, you know, and I will
Those
be
are the
the
best jobs.
first, I will be the first to admit because shit rolls downhill. So when, you know, up in the corporate, it would roll down to my supervisor and then down to me. So I did say stressed a lot and I would roll it on down to the girls, I'm sure. I know I wasn't always the easiest person to deal with.
That's human.
But the whole thing is like, if they could have just, I don't know that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why too. I feel like we work and work and work and work and work to only live very few hours, you know?
Well, and you, like every job I've gone to, really, I've had the crappiest hours. I can't think of one job that I've had decent, good hours. But did I miss one? Gaslighting in the form of bullying.
Yes,
you're right,
that's
Danny.
what they do. They gaslight you.
Well, and I would say I'm working at one of the bourbon distillers was the biggest mistake I ever made. And that was one of the only jobs I've ever had that was a majority female. And I was picked on so bad. And there was one line, like I have always excelled at every job, but there was one line, and it came to getting stuff straight. You cannot put somebody that's OCD to where they have to line up two things and have the bottles flying in front of their face, because I couldn't do it. I mean,
you'd be chasing the belt around.
I was, but I couldn't line up things because there was just too much going on. And so I would volunteer to either load the line or unload the line, because I mentally, watching them bottles go past, could not do it. And I even told the big boss. And the woman that ran that line, I mean, she tripped me and everything else. Like, just, I did not get along with her.
See, and I don't understand, like, why is it so hard? Like, do these people have like power trips over you?
Oh yeah.
You know?
Well, and at that distillery, you started out as a temp, and every single line I was on, they would ask for me to be on their line, because I could keep up with the line and I could do more than they needed done. Whether or not it was dipping tiny bottles. Yeah, but if they wouldn't have had them zooming in front of my face, I could have. But it was them, it was just too much going on. Like my mind could not focus on that one bottle at a time. And because I would get too nervous about the other bottles flying by. And so I just couldn't do it. And I mean, I was honest with them about it. But when you sit there and you're like, okay, I can do A line, B line, C line, D line, you know, I can do all these lines, even like fifths of Knob Creek, having to load a line over my head, like for an entire shift. That gets heavy.
So when, I mean, clearly you have to work. Everybody has to work. When is enough enough? When is it ever going to stop? Is this something, I mean, bullying in the workplace, is it something that you just have to
I think if you're a boss, be a boss. Don't be a bully. Because
but see, now this was what always got me, is because with our line of work, when we were at the finance company, they always told us that there's a difference between a boss and a leader. And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that there is a difference between a boss and a leader. But the ones that was telling us this would also, in the same breath, tell us we wasn't doing good enough, or we needed to do better, be better, you know.
There was too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
I get trying to be better and do better with things. You know, I understand that. But at the same time, like, you can't put me down.
I'm not going to work for you if you do.
Yeah. Like, you can't.
I made one of my bosses' lives a living hell, because I busted my butt. I worked harder than everybody around me because I had to. Because a lot of the jobs, like I said, I was one of the only females. So, and plus, I'm not very big, so I stand out pretty badly. And I would get picked on and looked down on, especially like at GFS when I was unloading trucks. It's bad when their boss that ran their side of the dock loved me to death. but my own boss treated me like garbage.
So, I think that a lot of times like that, when you find, when you, if you can find a good click,
Mhm.
that's where that it's great.
Oh, I
It's
would work
great.
at GFS again in a heartbeat, but for GFS, I would not work for the unloading company.
So when I very first started with this finance company, I had a different supervisor at that time, which was a male, and I'm from Harlan. I've said that several times. So in Harlan, it's small. Everybody knows everybody. Anyway, this particular supervisor was actually planning on. See, we had to sign as managers and up. We had to sign these no complete compete clauses.
Mhm. I've had to do
Now,
that.
as a customer service, which at the time this is what I was when he was at the time the supervisor, we didn't have those. However, um, he was planning to open his own finance company,
Yeah.
but he was doing it kind of,
Shady.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't anything that was talked about. My favorite thing was, again, we lived in a small town, so the UPS man, when he went to deliver his computers to his new company, he wasn't home. There was nobody there. So he didn't want to leave all of these computer boxes sitting
Sitting
outside.
outside.
Yeah. So he brought them to our office because he knew he worked for our company.
What a dummy.
So he brought them to our office, and my manager was like, "These are our computers," So we start looking at, and it's his new finance company that he's opening up. That's how we found out he was opening up a new finance company.
Oh my gosh.
So fast forward, he leaves our company, goes and opens this other company. Shit falls apart with that company. They bring him back to our company. Now, not only did we have to sign, as managers, when I got up, as a higher up, we had to sign no compete clauses. And there was a slew of other stuff that had to be done too. But when he decided he wanted to come back, he got to come back in the same position that he left in, and then they promoted him to VPO, from supervisor to VPO.
He needs to be he needs to move up the ladder. He's the one that crashed his own company.
I'm telling you, like that's how it goes.
Danny said, "Leaders will do the work with you. Bosses will just tell you what to do." Oh man, is that true? I used to have a boss. Would not help. Would not help. Oh, he made me so mad. Like he would tell you what to do in the process of you already doing it, just to tell you what to do.
And I'm like, just to be a boss.
Yeah,
because that's what it was.
Well, I looked at him one time. I was like, well, I'm already halfway through with this. Anything else you want to tell me to do? And he was like, I'm sure I'll think of something. I was like, well, you didn't think of this quick enough.
I can't understand. And I mean, I know I get frustrated sometimes, a lot of times my nerves are.
Did you snap back at the people though that treated you like shit, even if they were a higher up? Because I did all the time.
Sometimes I did.
I gave you what you gave me.
Sometimes I did. Now I will tell you, when I left that company, because I said, earlier, I did have a customer service that was interested in stepping up into my position. And then when I found out that they had offered it to another manager in another office that was not doing a good job with her office already.
Yeah, you're like flushing one down the toilet.
I really lost it then.
Yeah.
And so I put both my supervisor and my VP in a text message, and I was like, y'all are nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is exactly why you all are losing your employees, your 10-year employees, because of stunts like this. This is ridiculous, Well, of course, I got ignored, and I expected as much. But
I got along with more of my bosses than I didn't. But I always got along with the ones that would meet your energy. I never could get along with the ones that bossed you around.
But what about the ones not even so much as bossing you around or met your energy? Like, at one point, I was so miserable when I first took on my office, when I first moved here and I took on my office, because every little thing was just nitpicked apart, to the point to where I called my sister one day in tears, and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I do not know why I took this position, because nothing I can do is good enough. I was not wanted for that position by the supervisor that was there at the time. She wanted somebody else, who, by the way, eventually got fired for drinking on the job. So those are the people that she picked to support, you know. However, here I am trying to do my job and do what I'm supposed to do. And yet it was never like nothing was ever good enough.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever good enough. And my sister was like, you know, this isn't like you. Just keep going strong and then give it at least a month. And at the end of the month, if you still don't, you know, you don't have to stay. And I was
Yeah.
like, but I've already committed, you know. And
It's
so
hard.
when I had talked to at the time my VP, again, he was the one who had helped me through my move and my promotion process and everything. And he told me, he said there was two advices that he gave everybody. Again, he was a old car salesman, so he knew how to
He knew how to
talk.
sell you.
Yeah. But was to work smarter, not harder, in anything that you did, and to make them feel like I wanted to be a part of their little clique or group or whatever. I didn't necessarily have to be a part of it, but to make them think that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So it was so much easier on me when I did that.
Well,
Kind of like the fake it until you make it, you know.
I was sitting here thinking about, because I've had multiple jobs, because if I get bored, I move on. And it's a bad quality of myself, but it's me, so that's who I am. But I worked at a liquor store, and somebody I'm related to down the line owned this liquor store. I didn't know him. My mother knew him. It was on her side of the family, and he had a pet. I'll just call her a pet, because he was married, but
no,
yeah. But at that time, me and my ex-husband had decided we wanted to have another kid, and they caught wind of it because my husband's best friend worked with me. So him and I was talking one day, and at that job we dealt with, like, he would cash. It didn't matter how big your check was, as long as we could prove it was there, they cashed it. So we messed with a lot of money in that liquor store,
right?
And she went to the office. I had never had any complaints. My drawer was never short. People would come in because it was my shift, and he literally told me that that was not a family environment, that I could not be pregnant and work there. A liquor store. Nowhere that we're drinking, a liquor store. And it was all because she couldn't have kids.
See, I don't understand why that. And now that is more, what's the word I'm looking for? Because it wasn't like a chain liquor store. It's like a mom and pop's liquor store.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It was a little liquor store in Shepherdsville.
So I guess people in that type of situation, you could get by with it a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
But even in a corporate setting, you get by with it a lot more than too.
It's he said, she said. It's
yeah.
he said, she said. It don't matter what kind of an area you're in if there's not cameras.
Well, I tell you what.
And even if there's cameras, it don't matter.
One of my favorite stories.
Went up my nose or something. Sorry.
Here's one of my favorite stories with our company. We used to travel a lot. They used to take us on different trips and stuff. And at one time, before everything changed, because I told you all the dynamics. Yeah, dynamics of everything. That word.
Yeah, something like that.
Changed. So beforehand, if you were a manager or up, you got to participate in these trips. They would take you all over the place. So we went to Florida, and they would shut down. They were literally shut down.
Where the woman got shit on?
Yes, it was actually.
See, I do listen.
Yeah. No, that was Texas. My bad. It wasn't Florida. That was Texas that she got the bird shit on her.
Oh, well, y'all was at some kind of a park.
Yeah. But so we went to Universal, and they had all of Universal closed down for us. So they had, if you got like so many perfect audits or so much whatever they wanted to get, you could sit with the higher ups in the corporate, in their little room, or whatever. It was a special privilege that you could get.
Yeah.
So there was this girl in this other office who, I mean, sometimes love her heart, I love her to death, but she got on my nerves sometimes. But again, I mean, she had ran a great office, you know? So she got invited to be in this room with the uppers of the company. the auditor had seen this, the one I was telling you about that came in, would not ever pass me for anything. So she seen her up there, and she was like, what is she doing up there? And we were like, well, if you get this, 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 and this, or whatever, you get the invite to go up there and sit in this room, as like a privilege. She said, bet that won't happen again. And do you know, now it wasn't a rule, but it was kind of like a hidden rule, because we would be gone for like 2 or 3 days at a time when we would go on these trips.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of an understood rule that once we came back, auditors didn't come into our office the next day that we came back. They would give us a little time. She went into that girl's office the very next day we came back off of that trip, and tried to get her fired for something to do with the taxes because we also did taxes. We weren't just a loan company.
Yeah.
We also did taxes, something to do with the taxes. I think she did like her ex-husband's taxes or something. But she bypassed her supervisor, her VP. She went straight to corporate on this girl.
Her.
No.
Oh, not the auditor.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
She went straight to corporate, wanting her rid of that day. Like her supervisor and her VP had to step in immediately and be like, no, this is not the case. This is not how she is.
Yeah.
She runs a good office. And they had to send proof up the chain.
Because this one auditor had a stick up her ass.
Yeah.
Danny had a comment for you.
Oh. Amber, I hear you're a great leader. Kristen paid me to say that. Well, no, she was saying I was a bully. I don't know.
Danny's over here, sitting here, like, strapped to a seat because we keep making him come.
We changed things around, and he's like, oh, you don't need me here.
We're like, you're our safety blanket.
He's our safety blanket. So.
Yeah, no, I think that I never stayed at a job that the bosses acted like that, because I have too much of a smart ass mouth. Like, if you give it to me, I'm giving it back. I don't care who you are. Like, you literally could be the president, and I don't care. I'm going to give you what you give me.
I would pick and choose my battles with, a lot of them. I would pick and choose my battles. That's just something that I don't understand is workplace bullying. I don't like a bully anyway. Even in school, I didn't like bullies. But being in a workplace and knowing that this is where you have to make a living. This is your job. This is what you have to do. And it sucks when you can't go in to a peaceful environment to work,
Most of my jobs were never a peaceful environment, but it was only because it was just like a plant or a factory or whatever.
Yeah, one time I did work for the fiscal court in Harlan. Now I started off in the judge executive's office way back when. I absolutely hated it then. That's a whole other story. That's one of the reasons why I hate everything about politics. Anyway, I got moved to the recycling center. I actually learned how to drive a forklift.
You tell me about that.
And I loved that. That was like probably my most favorite job ever. But that was because my boss there was so much fun. Like, I just loved him.
See, I got taken advantage of at certain jobs because, like, I was hired at that last job where I worked for Porter Paint, and I liked all the bosses. I got along with the plant manager. I got along with everybody. But they took advantage of the fact that I had forklift experience. The problem is my forklift experience was on a stand-up forklift.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're harder to drive than a sit-down. So they were like, well, if you can drive a stand-up, you can drive a sit-down. I was like, okay. Didn't give me anything, but here's the gas pedal, and this is how it works, and watch the back end of it. It swings wide, because they were the big propane forklift drive.
So we had the sit-down forklifts at the recycling center, and the guys would always, we bailed up.
Were they the really big ones?
Yeah, because we had to carry the bales of cardboard, because we had the balers and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so me and this other girl, we worked in the office. Now, the office was super tiny. Super, super tiny. Again, we were in a little recycling center, so our boss comes in one day. Lycus was his name. His name was Lycus. He was Greek. But he comes in one day and tells us that, I don't know, somebody had complained somewhere along the line, and that the office help needed to also learn how to do the outside, work too. Like we needed to learn how to run the bellers and the forklifts and move stuff around in case we did it because our guys also went out on trucks.
I would laugh my ass off if anybody that worked in an office or anywhere I worked with tried coming out on the floor.
Oh my God. We had the best time, but it was also the very last time he asked us to come out on the floor.
Guarantee it.
Yeah, we ran into a beller with a forklift. I mean, it was fun. We had tons of fun with it, but he was like, oh no.
Well, the forklifts we had to drive, they were the real big propane. But as soon as one of the bosses, he wasn't my boss because there was 3 different supervisors. So I was underneath one supervisor and he ran a certain area. And if I didn't have any tankers coming in or something, the other supervisor would pull me. And I wouldn't be able to do any of the side work that my supervisor needed done. So at one point, my supervisor came to me and he's like, hey, why isn't this getting done? I said, hey, why don't you tell them to quit calling for me on the radio? Because I know you hear it. Because they had to go to the plant manager and say, hey, Kristen's not busy. Can we pull her? Well, once he figured out that I knew how to drive a forklift, he wanted me to load trucks. I had never loaded trucks. I had always unloaded trucks. Well, you have to, when you're unloading or loading, especially big pills of paint, you have to load that at a certain way and a certain, like the weight has to be distributed like evenly.
Right.
And I'm sitting here like, okay, I can see this causing a huge issue. And so I went and got him and I was like, tell me what I'm doing. Because if you want me to load this truck, I'm not doing it blind.
Right.
So he showed me how to do it and everything. And I was like, okay. Well, the supervisor that I saved was my supervisor. He come outside. There was tornado warnings in Louisville. And I'm outside and I called him on the radio and I'm like, hey, the sky's getting kind of black. When do I get to come in? And he goes, are the sirens going off? And I was like, yeah. And so he comes outside on a forklift. Well, I was, of course, on like concrete. And he swung the forklift around and he ran the back end of it off the concrete. So he almost flipped the forklift.
Oh, God.
And he didn't know how to get it back up on the concrete. And he was so scared to tell the plant manager because she was like one of them. She was fair.
So
she was a leader.
To...
She was a leader.
Yeah.
Like she would get on the floor with you, Mark. Well,
and
I was
like,
like,
afraid to tell her?
Oh, yeah. Because she was the first one to write you up, too.
Oh, okay.
Like, she was just a stickler for the rules. This is how it was.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I was like, hang on. I ran inside and grabbed another forklift. And I told him, I said, let me on the one that was getting ready to flip. And I put the other one on top of the forks. And he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, just watch. And I picked up the forklift enough to even out the other forklift to pull it up onto the concrete.
So and flip.
And he goes, what? How did it? And I said, do you think this is the first time I've ever almost flipped a forklift? I said, you learn real quick because I've gone through a semi-trailer's floor. You want to talk about hurting? Like I was on a stand-up lift and this truck, I could see the ground going into this trailer.
I couldn't do forklifts and stuff.
Oh, I thought I broke my rib cage because I like was easing up onto this truck and I had to get like one pallet and it was all the way at the nose of the trailer. So I had to go all the way up through this trailer. I pick it up and I'm coming out and I just go flat to the concrete. And I'm like, I got on my radio. I was like, can maintenance come get me up off the blacktop? And they knew I was on a forklift. So my boss comes over the radio and he's like, blacktop? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's sunny outside. I just want you to know. But inside of the trailer is a little airy. And he comes and I see him come around the corner of the trailer and I'm stuck. Like I have no way to move. And he comes and he looks at me and he goes, what the hell did you do? And I said, well, I didn't do anything. The forklift went through the trailer. And so they maintenance had to come and they had these like big crane like things that they had to get me out of the trailer. Of course, the guys came and lifted me up out of the forklift first, but
with all of our stories,
that was always fun to me though.
Even with everything, because you've done different things. Mm-hmm. I've mainly just done office settings, but it is all the same. Like you're gonna have a bully.
There's a bully everywhere.
Everywhere.
It just depends on what you're willing to put up with.
Yeah.
And it's not as bad in certain places. I feel like an outsider here sometimes, and you see a little bit of the conflict and bitterness, and like not bitter, bickering and stuff like that. But this you and Jimmy maintain that. Like, y'all don't
Mhm.
allow that shit. And I think that's what makes a good owner, because if there's one person that's making everybody else's life hell, they don't need a job.
Right. You've got to learn how to, and I guess that from experience from the finance company, I don't want to be one of the
Mhm.
bullies, but I also don't want to be ran all over either.
Yeah.
And I think
Any-
that you can find a happy medium.
Well,
I really
anytime,
think that you can.
because I mean, every job I had, I literally worked up to a trainer or a leader. It didn't matter what, but I was always right beneath a supervisor, because I never wanted to be a supervisor, because I had been offered, and I was like, all that paperwork and sitting behind a desk, no, thank you.
See,
Like, I can't do that.
I think that I don't know. I feel like you're going to run into a bully no matter what, no matter where you're at, no matter what
Yeah,
situation.
but if you have the
But
right upper management,
it can be stopped.
yes. And I don't like some of the jobs like that I've had. Jim Beam was probably the worst. That upper management would not take care of the bullies. They had their favorites. They had the people
Mhm.
that they let get away with
It's all
murder in that place.
political. I
Yes.
think any job that you do, it takes it back to being political, and I hate politics.
And
with
they weren't even the
anything.
hardest workers.
But
That's
I
what made me
learned
so
a
mad.
long time ago, it's not what you know, it's who you know
Mhm.
with everything.
Well, and I only had one job where that wasn't the case, and I wish I could remember what it was, because I can see it in my head. I just can't remember the name. But they had a very close friend there, that they did not favor
Mhm.
over everybody else.
And that's good. Like I have more respect for somebody that can do something like
Mhm.
that versus the opposite. Again, I mean, I've had a job in with the fiscal court with politics and stuff in like a recycling center
Mhm.
setting. Mainly I've always just been in an office setting though, and you're gonna have, and you've been in like warehouses
Mhm.
and distilleries, and in both positions you have those bullies. I guess it's just
Well,
how you
even in nursing,
yeah.
because I when I worked in the nursing home, you would have people that were like that had to have multiple people pick them up or something to move
Mhm.
them, like a two-person assist or whatever. Nobody would help you. And I was pregnant at the time, and I didn't know it when I got the job that I was pregnant. And there was this man. He was a pretty big man. Like, I couldn't move him.
Mhm.
And him and I
But
figured
that's
out how to move
dangerous.
him.
That's
Mhm.
dangerous for not
For the
only you,
resident.
but for the patient as well.
Well, him and I figured out how to get him moved, because anytime I would ask for help, because you were supposed to, good luck.
Right.
And so him and I figured out how to get him moved without the help, because I knew I could at least slow him down to where he did not get hurt if he did fall, but I knew he would fall.
Mhm.
And of course, I would get rode up and lose my certification and stuff. And that was a chance I was willing to take, because I was watching them be neglected. This place
Yeah.
got shut down. But like, they had like a senior prom thing, and I came in on my day off and did the makeup and hair for the women and stuff, and just made them feel so pretty. And I took so much pride in that job. That's the one that I had double pink eye and got fired at.
See, I think that with and
Well, I didn't get
when-
fired necessarily. I got told, well, it's just not going to work if you can't make it in.
I think that if you are a bully, and listen up, guys, if you are listening to us and you're a
Mhm.
bully, stop being a bully.
Yeah.
And
Don't be a know-it-all either. You can always
yeah.
learn something new.
Yeah, exactly, and learning something new is not a bad thing. You can
Mm-mm.
always learn something new in a new position and new anything, really. It's really not a bad thing at all. If you're being bullied, you don't have to.
Open your mouth.
Yeah, you don't have
Know
to
the
do
chain of
that.
command to go to, because if you skip part of the chain, unless the chain of command is part of it and you've got to skip that person, stay within the chain of command, because you will get so much more respect doing that. But if it is a part of the chain of the command that is bullying, skip that person.
Well,
go
and
above
even
them.
if you have to start with them first and then skip them, then you can
Mhm.
go above them. But at least you've done.
At least you
so
tried.
that way they can't come back and say, "Well, you didn't do the chain of command."
Yeah.
This isn't
Did
good
you
for
speak to this person? Did they try to settle it? Blah, blah,
try
blah.
that 1st
Mhm.
but always, always, always keep record of who, what, and when.
Who, what, when, where, how.
Yeah. So that way
Except for if
you
it's me.
know. It's a except what?
If it's me, don't do it for me.
Oh yeah, no, I'm keeping it for you too. Absolutely. Who, what, when, and why, how.
Amber's like, you were late on this day at
Every
this
day.
time.
every time. So
I wasn't there for a while, and now all of a sudden I keep getting like late. Like I was earlier today than I have been though.
Anywho,
You were 5 hours late the other day.
I've
I've got
we
catching
even
up to
had a
do.
time set the other day.
I've got.
Anywho,
Y'all hear Danny over here?
Anywho, guys, thanks for listening in. And again, you do not have to be a bully in your workplace.
Don't be a bully.
Or put up with being bullied in your workplace. You can follow along with us on all of our social medias. We are on, of course, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of those fun things. So give us a listen, give us a like, follow, and until next time, guys, we'll see you later.
Thanks, y'all.